Good morning. Welcome to Channel 1908 News. Today is October 1st. I am Jack Green.
And I am Steve Doolin.
Our top story? Today is the 100th anniversary of the issue of the Ford Model T. We will be welcoming a prestigious expert on this topic later on. But for now, Mark is standing live in Kingston. Mark?
Good morning, Steve. I'm standing at the corner of North and Main Avenue. As you know, today is the 100th anniversary of the Ford Model T. We are going to ask a few people how they feel about the Model T and how it affects us today. Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Can you tell us your name?
My name is Phil.
So, Phil, how do you feel about the 100th anniversary of the issuing of the Model T Ford?
Oh, well, you see, I think there are a few reasons why it affects us. My first reason is because because the other automobiles released before this one were very luxurious and expensive, complicated machinery.
Very good. Anything more to say?
Yes, also, Henry Ford was very different from many automobile producers. The other producers were comfortable to target in the market of the well-to-do. Also, Ford did not pocket the proceeds, but yet lowered the price of his car to make it even more affordable.
Is that all you have to say?
Yes, thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you very much for your time. Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you for that report. Right now we're going to welcome Michael Nichols to the show to share some insight.
Welcome to the show, Michael. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, thank you.
Okay, now, let's get some professional information from you.
Sounds great.
So, what was the price of the car when it first came out?
When the car first came out in 1908, it cost approximately $825. Keep in mind, the dollar was much higher at that time. Over 10,000 cars were sold in its first year of existence, which in fact was a record for that time. 4 years later, the price dropped to $575, and sales soared. The reason why this car was so affordable was due to the fact that the assembly line made car making more efficient and it cost less. Henry Ford did not just conceive this topic, but he perfected it at that. When the now famous Ford Runabout was introduced, the cry of Ford's competitors, alarmed by its enormous sale, said the car was too light. But in reality, it had the perfect balance and saved customers on automobile repairs and on gasoline. So in reality, it really did revolutionize how cars were made.
So, what were the features of these cars?
This car had many revolutionary features. Steering gear and control on the left side of the car. The engine, transmission, flywheel, magneto, and universal joint were enclosed in the same case. The top of the engine was removable so that the valves, cylinders, etc. can be easily cleaned, repaired, or adjusted.
So, how much did the car weigh?
Well, you see, weight is too important of a factor to be passed by lightly. Suppose a car is 500 pounds heavier than necessary. That represents a quarter of a ton of dead weight. It means as much as the combined weight of a family of 4, a man and his wife, and 2 children. A very serious handicap, virtually double load every time you go riding. It takes gasoline to carry this excess weight. It wears out tires. It is hard on the engine and transmission. The effect is the same as if one tried to use a runabout as a truck, overloading every
Wow, that's real interesting. I would have never realized. What were the working conditions standard in the automobile processing centers?
Well, they improved once the assembly line was created. Henry Ford's biography stated why the conditions improved. Firstly, workers did not have to participate in heavy lifting. Also, there was no stopping or bending over. These 2 features ensured that not as many people would seriously injure their backs. Next, no special training was needed whatsoever, so there were jobs that almost anyone can do. And lastly, it provided employment to immigrants. And with this, worker pay increased from $2.50 to $5 a day, a large sum for that time period.
Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
To commemorate this historic day, we are airing a documentary created by the current Ford industry. The first Ford automobile was released in 1896, called the Quadricycle. The car did not meet expectations and failed shortly after. However, the Ford Model T improved greatly on it. The Model T was released on October 1st, 1908. One thing most people look at is the metal this car was made of, vanadium steel. A great deal has been written, considerably more has been told about vanadium steel in the last 2 years. No study of metal that has been observed over the past decade has instituted a wider discussion or greater interest. There is ample reason for this, for scientists are agreed that a proper mixture of vanadium has a most wonderful effect on steel, increasing its efficiency to an almost unbelievable extent. However, it is now our intention to enter into a specific scientific description of this steel, but rather to illustrate what it had accomplished in Ford cars, saying it has an instance over Ford superiority, that this vanadium steel is used throughout the entire Model T wherever strength is needed. The picture below shows a Model T crankshaft made out of vanadium steel, which is heat treated. The crankshaft was under enormous pressure under a steam hammer. The pressure had almost tied the crankshaft into a bow knot, but there was not a slightest suspicion of a fracture, and the shaft had since been straightened without it being damaged.
The next image shows a part of a Model T made out of vanadium steel, which is heat treated. The front spring is in a capacity test machine. This image also shows the spring deflected 4 inches below center, a pressure of 3,000 pounds being applied. This next picture shows the same spring after the pressure is released. The spring has resumed its normal position without a particle of set. These tests were all applied in the presence of a delegation of engineers attending the ASME convention held in Detroit in July 1908.
There was no previous records to guide. Actual tests had to determine the actual formula for each operation. This research has occupied nearly 3 solid years of Mr. Ford's time. However, Ford was 2 years ahead of competitors.
To end this off, we are going to mention how many Model Ts are still in existence today. There are somewhere between 50,000 and 300,000 displayed in museums and that people own. That is quite remarkable since the car is over 100 years old, and that just shows how durable the car was, and how advanced it was for its time, and how much of a genius Mr. Ford was for creating all of this.